Give a warm welcome to John Williams.
I shall use the mic. Fantastic. There we got there in the end. Now, before we start, by the way, if anyone managed to take a good photo of me, let me know. Famously difficult to do, but if you manage to get one while I'm talking, that'll be great. If you hold the mic closer, I shall do that. Good tip. If you'd like to get hold of these slides, if you go to getmyslides.com, you can do it on your phone. You can opt in. Basically, it'll email you the slides straight away while I'm talking. And you'll also get a chapter of my new book. So we're going to talk today about world domination. This is me as Bali taking over the world. And I want to show you 4 steps to world domination, i.e. how do you get an idea out into the world that's really successful, whether that's a business, whether it's a book, whether it's a campaign of some sort. I've helped lots of people to do that. I've done that myself, so I'm going to talk about, I'll give you some examples as well. But there are 4 really important steps. You've always got to have 4 steps, right? 4 or 5 steps anyway. Step 1 is make your idea irresistible, and I'm going to go through what all these things are. Number 2 is get laser focused, be really specific. Number 3 is to make yourself stand out. And number 4 is to launch early and learn from it. And so these are principles I followed. They work really powerfully if you do them well. And by 5 o'clock, you'll know how to do them. When you get it right, this is what happens. You get traction immediately. You find that people remember you. You find that the news about what you do spreads by word of mouth. And that the press, the media, and publishers actually seek you out. So the publishers have approached me for both my books. The press have approached me for lots of things that I've been doing. You become a phenomenon or a legend in your field. These are some things I've done just to show that I've actually done this myself. This is my first book on my left called Screw It, Let's Play. I featured in the Telegraph last year, in The Guardian, multiple other publications. My new book was a bestseller for entrepreneurship. I've also ran a live event called Scanner's Night. A scanner is somebody with lots of different ideas, hates to focus on one thing, gets distracted easily, but it's very, very creative. And that thing also got a lot of press organically, and I ended up selling the rights to run it in Italy. This is the Italian version of the book from the person who I was just talking to from Italy, Molo Tutto. I also ran a program called the 30-Day Challenge, which has had a lot of press. I'll talk a little bit about that later, which we run online. It's a global program of hundreds of people making an idea happen in 30 days. Has its own app, which is very cool to see what people are doing all over the world. And I also run mastermind and mentorship programs. And all these things have done well and got press, often without me. I've never been organized enough to hire a PR person, but if I did, I'd probably do even better. But I'll show you how you can attract that kind of stuff just by what you do. So the first step I mentioned was to make your idea irresistible. And this is based on a seemingly really simple principle, which, to boil it down to the simplest possible words, from Paul Graham, who is the founder of the most revered startup incubator in the world called Y Combinator. They helped start Airbnb, Dropbox, multiple other companies. He says number 1 rule for startups that become worth billions, or even a small business, is to make something people want. And what we get wrong is we tend to start something we think is a neat idea, and no one actually wants it. And when we do create something, we tend to talk a lot about how it works and the features, and not the benefits. And as this chap Theodore Levitt said, is a Harvard Business School marketing professor, people don't want to buy a 1/4 inch drill, they want to buy a 1/4 inch hole. What he means by that is people may buy a drill, but they're actually buying it because they want to achieve something. So you have to sell the thing that it's achieving. In actual fact, with drills, they found out that an awful lot of people buy men drills, particularly. It's quite it's gender skewed as a product. Power tools in general. The average, can you guess an average number of times a power tool that is used when it's bought as a gift? Anyone want? Close. 1. So if you know that 1 is the average, that means an awful lot of people are using it 0 times. So what they're buying then is they're not buying it then because they want a hole, but they want it because it makes them feel like a man, because now they have a power tool. So you can sell that as well. So the best thing to do is to solve a problem. You've heard this before, but we're going to go into this in a little bit of depth. T. Harv Eker, who's an author and an entrepreneur, says that An entrepreneur is someone who solves problems at a profit. It's a lovely, simple explanation. And a problem can be very small or can be very large. So we'll see it in a moment. But I suggest people think of it like a makeover. So there's a before and an after. And in the before state, I found this when I was just Googling before and afters. This is kind of somewhat cheesy but direct view of the before and after that someone's using in their marketing about tutoring children. So the before is an unhappy child who presents with certain problems, and after you've got a very happy child who's now smarter and better educated. So what I'm suggesting is whatever you're creating, a business, a book, a product, you need to create something where you are very clear that the before looks a certain way for people and they're unhappy about it and they're willing to spend money on it, and the after is something they really want and it is going to make them happy. And what people pay for actually is for transformation from the before to the after. So people don't buy your product because of the features. They buy it because they're going to go from this to this. And in actual fact, whatever it might be, whether it's a service or a power drill, what people are looking for is solely that transformation. If you could wave a wand and go from the before to after and achieve the same thing, people will be happy to pay for that. And it's really important to remember, because when we're creating, is this a better one? Because when we're creating something, we tend to try and convince people by telling them the details of it, and that's actually not what people are paying for. So this is also described as selling to the pain, and the pain can be minor. It can be, I feel bored on a Friday night, I feel lonely, so I want to get Tinder, I feel frustrated with not being able to afford a holiday, so that's the motivation for low-cost airlines. It could be, I'm just kind of dissatisfied or in discomfort, or it could be something more major, somebody anxious, stressed, fed up, or actually in physical pain. So somebody who's panicking about losing their job, then they're going to find careers coaching or maybe financial coaching really helpful. There's also what I would describe as comparative pain, where you think, well, why would somebody buy a flight on, say, Virgin America rather than United Airlines? They're both airlines. One of them, you're less likely to get beaten up having bought a ticket. But the other thing is that maybe people, Virgin America did well because, Virgin Atlantic rather, did well because people could get to America from the UK, could fly between the two continents. But it wasn't an enjoyable experience. They were frustrated with being served by grumpy people and being treated like a sort of somebody who's just an obstacle in the way of delivering a service. And so that's something you can sell to when you think about this is a frustration people have with the current solutions that are out there. Now there's I think there's a famous book called Selling the Intangible, but if you sell services, I used to work for Deloitte, one of the biggest consultancies in the world, and they were very good at selling intangible services. And that means a service that's not clearly defined, and it makes it particularly hard to sell. And a classic example here, for instance, is coaching. Who here is a coach, or an advisor, a fitness person, health coach? There's a few people. And the classic coaching sale is, in its normal form when you come off a coaching qualification, is, okay, how would you like to work with me in a kind of undefined process to get to an undefined result at for an unknown amount of time at an unknown cost? And funnily enough, life coaches find it quite difficult to sell themselves when they pitch it like that. So it's an awful lot easier if you actually choose a specific pain that you can address, and then you produce something which addresses that and solves the problem for them. And whether that could be consultancy. So in Deloitte, for instance, one of the tricks they used to do is to say, okay, someone's got a very wide-ranging culture problem in their corporation, and they would end up selling them millions of pounds worth of services. But the way they got in there is they said, we will do an audit for you. So we will do a culture audit in your company, and we'll tell you exactly what's wrong. And then we'll do your report, and it'll be a 20-page report, and we'll present it to all your executives. And then you can act on that if you want to, or we can talk about fixing it, with our help. And then what happens is once you get Deloitte in the door, it's kind of a running joke with consultancies that you need a crowbar to get them out again. So they sell this audit piece and they get into the company and then they go, well, we've told you everything that's broken and you don't really know how to fix it. So really you should probably just hire us to do it. But what they've managed to do is sell an undefined service in a way that's quite tangible because they started with something that was very specific. Robert Collier described this as enter the conversation already taking place in the customer's mind. So if you're trying to guarantee that the idea you come up with, the book you're writing, the product you're creating really lands, then you need to think about what is going on inside the head of your target customer or your client or your buyer. Another way of thinking about it is to say, but you need to sell something already on their to-do list. It's very hard. It's when you're kind of an optimistic person and you want to change the world, it's very easy to imagine that you can sell somebody on something they don't currently know that they need. Now, you can, at a push, do that, but you will probably go broke before you do. So if you're Apple, you can convince people by spending an absolute fortune and by being one of the most impressive companies in the world, but people need an iPad, which they didn't particularly know before, because if you look at tablets beforehand, no one was really buying them. But if you're a normal human being, you don't have that kind of weight and presence and brand yet, then it's much better to choose something that's already on people's minds. My favorite example of this is Sophie and Audrey Boss. They run a business called Beyond Chocolate in the UK. And I've known them quite a few years now. But they help women give up dieting and actually enjoy food and like their bodies. And often the women actually end up losing weight, but they don't kind of make that the purpose of it. It's to, make peace with food and your body. And they... Sophie told me the story once. So she was on a marketing workshop and the person running it says, so what do you do in your company? And she goes, we help women have a better relationship with food. And the person leading the workshop said, I don't think anyone's waking up in the middle of the night going, I need a better relationship with food. And what are they actually doing? If we go back to the previous slide, what's the conversation in their head? It's like, oh my God, I've fallen off another diet, or I can't cope with hating myself anymore. I can't stand a yo-yo dieting, the hope followed by the dashed expectations. So what they did was they changed it and they talked about finally reaching the end of yo-yo dieting, finally liking who you are and what you look like, and wearing clothes that make you look good, whatever shape and size you are. And they did an awful lot better as a result. So here's something you can try. I'll try it out with you. This is a format I heard described as an audio logo by a marketing chap called Robert Middleton. And he says you can describe yourself, when people say, like at a party or a networking event, what do? You can answer in this format. And that's, I help kind of person or market you're approaching, who, and then you describe the problem they have. So you don't describe what they want, you don't say what you do, you just describe what problem these people have that you help. So does anyone think they can answer in this format and give me their audio logo? Anyone want to give it a try? Michael? I'm going to volunteer you. Okay, I help businesses who have bad copy on their website. So there's a little adjustment I would make here, which is that that's already good. So that's good because you're describing the problem. You're not, normally people flip into the solution. They have bad copy on their website. Well, what does that mean? What's the consequence of that? Because if I have bad copy on my website and I'm making $100 million a year, I don't know if I care. So what does that actually mean? But have you got a mic, by the way, for Michael?
Hello, John.
Hi. So What does that look like? If someone's got bad copy, why is that a problem? What does it do?
It's not telling their story. It's not driving sales. They're not getting traffic and conversions.
So here's a version. Here's what I would say, actually, to make it really specific and make it a bit more exciting. I think you're nearly there. I would say I help people who do great stuff, but when people come to the website and read it, for some reason they're not buying, and it's driving you crazy. So we need a snappier version if you're literally using this in a networking event. But something like that, people who are great at what they do, but for some reason have never managed to describe that in print. So it's a much harder work getting new customers and clients when it should be. Because, do you think that would that describe some of the people you've worked with?
Definitely.
Yeah. So I think that's just making it a lot more specific. Okay, thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Now, people who want to change the world and save the planet, often, anyone here in that category want to save the planet, or maybe just let it all go to hell? But if you want to do that, often you can get caught up in, well, people should buy what I'm selling. And that never goes very well. So what I recommend you do is you sell what they want and deliver what they need. And I love this cartoon. This is an illustration. Hope you can read this. This is Calvin and Hobbes. Calvin selling a swift kick in the butt for $1. How's business? Terrible. That's hard to believe. I can't understand it. Everybody I know needs what I'm selling. And that actually is not that far off what the state that people get into when they're trying to sell something and they think that people should buy it. And the better way to do it is to get really psychic. So tune in to what your customers really want in the way I've been describing, and then use your customer's language. And as a result, if you get it really right, and I imagine Michael will probably be good at helping with this, you get to the point where people read the copy and it feels like you read their mind. When you really know the person you're trying to help and you use their language. Does anyone who's currently running a business or working for people, do you know the kind of language your clients use or your customers use to describe the situation they're trying to solve?
I run an online school to help techie people get jobs, and the way they describe their problem is, I applied to 1 million jobs online. No one called me back. Why?
That's great. Have you written that at the top of your website?
Sort of.
Yeah.
I've been working on it forever.
They know, that's nice. So so what you can do is actually take copy and put it in quotes like that and go, or you can put it in the second person. You can say, you've applied for more jobs than you feel like you should have done. You're not even getting responses, but you know you're an awesome candidate. What's going on? And then, like the rest of the copy, you've got them totally engaged if they feel like they relate to that. And that does become magnetic. That's good. I like that.
Thanks.
Another question that helps you is to ask, when do people buy? So what's the precipitating event that makes people reach for the phone and call you? A lot of times people could buy a book. They could call you for a service. They could do anything at any time. But there's actually a precipitating event, a triggering event that makes them want to do it. As an example, my own books, for instance, I found that you can find out the sales rank on Amazon. It goes up and down by the hour. And this is my first book, Screw Her, Let's Play. And it peaks on a Monday morning and drops on a Friday evening. And this proves that sales are not logical. People don't buy on logic, they buy on emotion. If they're buying on logic, they'd buy a book on this is about how to do what you love and get paid for it. They would buy on a Friday, have it delivered on a Saturday by Amazon, and then have all weekend to read it. But they don't. What happens is, on a Friday afternoon, the sales drop because no one cares because they're going home. Then when it comes to Monday morning, they get into work, they just go, oh my God, I can't stand this any longer. Quick, I'm going to Google something and try and solve my situation. So the sales go up on a Monday morning. So when you start to understand those patterns for whatever you're doing, it really helps. So market research, I'm a big fan of really simple, personal market research. Anything that gets you in a room with your target customers is good. So you can go and see companies personally, one at a time, and ask them what they actually need in this area that you're trying to help people with. Or if you're trying to create a startup, you're trying to create a product, ask them in that area, what do they need? And if you have followers, if you're fortunate enough to have like an email list or Facebook following or something like that, you can actually ask them directly, and then notice, it's a Roger Hamilton line, are people paying with their attention, time, or money? Because that shows that something's actually happening. Don't get into surveys. Sometimes people construct little surveys in SurveyMonkey and Typeform and send them to complete strangers, and I think it's kind of rude. It's okay to send surveys to people after they bought something from you, because now they've invested and they're in a business relationship with you. But sending it to complete strangers you'll get a very low rate, and I think it's a waste of time. Instead, just get in a room with people and go, what's your number one headache in this area right now? And if you can do that by email. Here's what I call the magic email. If you download the slides, you can just you can get it from there. You can copy and paste it. But you basically say, I'd love to know more about your business and how I can help best you. What's your number one challenge right now in, and then it's basically, the area that you help with. So if it's copywriting, it's like, what's your number one challenge with converting people on your website to new clients? It might be something like that. So I've got some lovely examples. This is somebody who did my program called the 30-Day Challenge, called Jody Day. And she wanted to help women all over the world who don't have children. They find themselves 40 plus, would have liked to have had children but don't have them, and feel a bit alienated. There's a strong culture, particularly in the UK, of what do they call it? Sort of mummy culture, where everything revolves around mothers, and it's quite difficult if you're not a mother, particularly if you wanted to be one. Some people don't want to be. Then she wanted to do something to help those people because she was in that situation herself. She, in 30 days, all she did was she wrote a blog post describing her own personal experience, went to one networking event to say, can I give a talk? While she was there, she met a journalist. The journalist wrote about her, and then suddenly people from all over the world started commenting on her blog, saying, oh my God, I didn't know you felt like this. I feel like this too. And she ended up being published in the Guardian newspaper in the UK. It's a national newspaper. She ended up in many, many publications. She's now the go-to support network. This is her full-time business. She has like 2 million followers around the world, 700 members of her online group. And she got a book deal, came out last year, Living the Life Unexpected, which is number one in its category on Amazon it's actually under fertility. So that shows how you can start something really small and turn it into something that is literally a global movement. She's become the go-to person in that subject. So the second thing of 4, world domination, get laser focused. This is Seth Godin, fantastic business author and entrepreneur. If you want to be the best in the world, make your world smaller, he said. And being the best in the world is always a good thing, even if it's in a very small niche. So if you can make it the area you're focusing on small, then you can really dominate it. There's also a classic quote from these branding experts. This is a really good book, by the way, 22 Immutable Laws of Branding by Al Ries and Laura Ries. And they say the power of a brand is inversely proportional to its scope. And the greatest evidence of that is another example of somebody that started on my 30-day challenge program. This is a business called Hey Saturday, run by this woman, Saskia Nelson. And in 30 days, all she did was she decided she wanted to be a photographer. She'd currently been doing something completely different before that. She wanted to be a photographer. So instead of being a generic photographer, and what people do is when they start out in photography, they go, hey, I'll photo your wedding, I'll photograph your products, I'll photograph your business, whatever it is. I'll photograph your dog. She decided to specialize and really niche it down. And what she did was she spent a long time on sites like Tinder trying to find a partner. She's now with somebody. But she discovered that while she was doing that, most people's photos on dating sites are terrible. They either not accurate, or not flattering at all, or too posed, too perfect. So she's created this business which was all about how do you create a photo that captures you and makes you look good, but actually represents you as well. So she photographs people. People love, vintage clothes shopping. Then she'll photograph them shopping on Brick Lane in London, looking in secondhand clothes stores. Or if they love cooking, she'll photograph them cooking. And she said, this is only dating profile photos. The result of being super niche like that, she actually got her first client in 30 days on this 30-day challenge program, and then got her first, did one person for free, just said to within the community, who would like to do this for free, and then that person recommended a friend to become her first paying client. And from then till now, she ended up in every newspaper in the UK and several others around the world. And she's had so much press, it's ridiculous. She was on the front page of BBC News about 2 weeks ago while I was out here. And I was talking to her about a book deal, possibly, actually, with Penguin Random House. She now has 7 photographers working underneath her in several cities in the UK, and she's opening up in New York. Now, do you think she would have had that level of press coverage if she said, I'm a photographer and I'll take a photo of anything? It wouldn't have happened, I don't think. It's only because she niched it. This chap is Peter Thiel, who was one of the coolest guys in Silicon Valley until he decided to start supporting Donald Trump, which made him rather unpopular over there. But he has some great quotes from his book, 0 to 1. He says, dominate a small niche and scale it from there toward your ambitious long-term vision. So even massive global startups, he recommends do the same thing. Facebook started in Harvard only, and it couldn't have worked any other way. Had to be specific to being in Harvard for it to get traction, and then it could expand to other colleges and then eventually the whole world. So if you want a super niche, if you want to do something like this, then there are 3 ways of doing it. You can niche on a very specific kind of person, a demographic or psychographic. That means a demographic is probably what you know, is age, gender, race, whatever it might be. Psychographic is that someone's values. So you only want to sell to hipsters. You only want to sell to digital nomads. You only want to sell to, retired conservative people or whatever it might be. And then you niche on functionality. That's the second way of doing it. You do one thing really, really well. Think about, out of all the things you offer or could offer, what's the thing that people rave about? What's the thing that people recommend you for? What do you do best? The third way is to niche geographically, which is a lot simpler. So to say that we are the number one in this particular area. And the result is it's quicker to start, quicker to succeed, greater word of mouth, and much better PR opportunity. Does anyone have a super niche or thinking of doing this? Want to ask a question about it? Who's that? You're pointing at someone. Him. Are you super niched, sir? Oh, really? I think I've heard of you. Advanced PowerPoint training.
Yes, you talked to us at the crew.
That's right, of course.
I'm here again for more.
Hello. Sorry, you've probably seen some of this before. But it's a good reminder. Yes, I remember that. Okay. Oh, that's good. That's good. That's niche. Who uses PowerPoint and feels like it's a bit of a nightmare, they're wasting time and stuff doesn't look that good? So you see, that's the power of being specific. If he goes, I do PowerPoint, I do Keynote, I do websites, I do graphic design, or whatever it might be, it's kind of like, oh, okay. And it doesn't get the same kind of impact. Now, when you're niching, make sure you are choosing something you're excited about. Don't just choose something you think, I wrote a whole book about this, the first one, Screw It, Let's Play. Don't choose something you think, oh, this is really lucrative right now, this will make a lot of money, even though it's it's not particularly exciting. Paul Graham, again, guy I was talking about earlier from Y Combinator, says it's hard to do a really good job on anything you don't think about in the shower. If you're not waking up going, oh, God, there's another idea, I could do that. then it's really not going to work. Now, doesn't need to be a lifelong passion. I'm not a fan of people sitting around waiting for their calling to drop out of the sky. Just do stuff until you find out what you like, is kind of the one sentence summary of Screw Work Let's Play. It's a bit more inspiring than that, but it's kind of, in summary, do stuff and don't sit around, because that's where you'll find out. It's in experience that you find out what you actually love doing. And one of the ways of finding out a niche is to think, what do people refer others to you for? So this, I met this guy who was an estate agent, he was a commercial estate agent in London, and he goes, I'm trying to work out what to put on my brochure, what should I do with it? And he goes, we want to do a brochure drop or extend to a different area, but what do we do? Like, how do we make ourselves sound special? And I go, well, why do people rave about you? When I said to him, first of all, actually, are you good? And he goes, yeah, people love us. And I go, they recommend us all the time. I go, what do they recommend you for? And he says, what they do is they say, they managed to let this property. I've been sitting empty for ages and got a better price than I ever thought I'd get. I go, right, well, that's your copy. So you either take that quote and name the person if they'll allow you to, or you basically make sure that it captures exactly that. Now, talking about niching, here's somebody who is a coaching client of mine really early on. His name's Chris Wilde, and he has some crazy ideas, and he was trying to choose which one to do. And he had this idea about historical photos. He's always had a dream since he was a child to go back in time. And so he was obsessed with photos that made you feel like you'd gone back in time. It wasn't just like, this is something boring and historical. It's like, oh my God, I'm back there. And I said, okay, he also had an idea to keep people's head cool under a wig. So just terrible ideas. So this was definitely the one that I said he should go for. It ended up being an enormously successful blog. He created this thing called Retronaut, and it just contains these remarkable photos that are from history, but somehow bring history to life. And they're often quirky and capture a moment in time. Watch out for this kind of husband, apparently. And so here's a picture of Marilyn performing for the troops, but it's from the stage. So somehow you always feel like you're in the middle of it. And what happened with this thing, he basically he Googled, the stories in Screw Up, Break Free, but he Googled how to set up a blog, set up a WordPress blog, started putting these images up, and after a while it suddenly went viral because he was posting every day, he's putting a lot of effort into it, and it suddenly took off and it got picked up by a lot of newspapers. Several years later, he ended up signing an exclusive licensing deal with Mashable, where he is the #1 most shared content on Mashable, which is a website basically of shareable content. So it's incredibly popular. He also got a book deal with National Geographic for the Retronaut book, which is fantastic. The problem if you don't niche, it's a little bit like dating. You kind of look like this. If you go like, I'll take anybody, it's fine, I'll do anything for anybody. Now, I have a very British slide here, and I don't know if this is going to work, but this is a shop I've driven past in Tottenham. Is anyone British here? There's a couple of British people at least on it, yeah. So this is a shop in Tottenham that I've driven past called the Shake and Brow, which is a combined Shake Shack and eyebrow trimming parlour, because apparently those two things went together in somebody's head, somebody called Annika. And to me, I just have an image of eyebrow clipping sitting on a milkshake, which is very unpleasant. And it's never very busy. Sounds like a German lager as well, the Shake and Brow. It's never very busy. And things were getting a bit desperate, so they expanded. It's now a Shake and Brow DVD zone and pan center. So you can rent a Hollywood DVD, get a pan and the Indian sweet thing, get your eyebrows done and have a shake. Still largely empty, unfortunately. And that's what happens if you actually just try to do everything for everybody. Then you're nobody for everybody. Dare to stand out. So this is fun. This is an important bit. I want to encourage people to make a strong statement and actually stand out. There's 3 parts to this. Make a strong statement. Make sure you're doing something really good. and make it simple to understand. Because if you do that, then people can remember you. PR is easier. You get viral word of mouth, and that means all the good things like more reach, more impact, and more money. So this is why I call my book Screw Work, Let's Play. The publisher Pearson wanted to call it Escape the 9 to 5, which is more literal. But the other reason I call it Screw Work, Let's Play is because the first two words are basically selling to the problem, and Let's Play is the after. So it's like before and after in 4 words. And literally, one of my favorite clients who ended up working with me in the end, Frank, he was walking through a bookshop one lunchtime, feeling really miserable in his job. He saw the word screw work and just kind of stopped and looked at it, and then saw Let's Play, and he goes, that sounds good. And then read How to Do What You Love and Get Paid for It. And so he then bought the book and bought one of my courses and ended up actually being a coach on my courses. And so that's the power of making a strong statement, making it specific, and being willing to actually turn some people off. Who knows what Marmite is? If you don't know what Marmite is, it's very like Vegemite. So there's a campaign in the UK for Marmite, which is a very, very strong tasting spread that you put on. It tastes like raw vitamin B or mixed with tar or something like that. Anyway, it's delightful. I love it. But people, they make this thing like you either love it or hate it. And so be willing to go for the Marmite effect and actually make a strong statement and realize some people are not going to like you. You know, some people don't like Screw Work, Let's Play. They don't like swearing or whatever it is. They don't like the kind of, you know, I know that my target market of people quite creative and unconventional really like it. I had a review in sort of HR magazine where the guy goes, no, it's a ridiculous title, but it's actually quite a good book. But, you know, it was really painful for him to admit it. So one of the ways to make a strong statement is to use humour, which I try to do. This is the wine balance. It says, remain calm, wine is here. You can hire this and actually have it turn up for deliveries if you're doing a party. This is the big gay ice cream shop in New York, which I'm sure there are some people who don't like people being that kind of out and whatever. But makes a strong statement, right? And you remember it. When you see it, you're not struggling to remember the name of it. Here's another one. This is, what's it actually called? Butch Bakery. I just think of it as butchered up buttercup. So these are cupcakes for men. This thing got loads of press. They had a book called the Butch Bakery Cookbook. What's the other phrase? These ain't your grandma's cupcakes. So if you a little bit playful and quite strong, if you want to go even stronger, here's a book called Effort, The Ultimate Spiritual Way. You would imagine that having a 4-letter word like that in your book might actually hamper sales. In actual fact, it didn't. John Parkin, who wrote this, is now a friend of mine. He sold 500,000 of these things in 22 different languages. And he runs high-end retreats called Effort Retreats with his partner Gaia and the Barefoot Doctor and a few other people, which are very good. High-end retreats in Italy. And so having that strong brand really, really helped him to get noticed. It's quite a simple concept. He says that saying effort is the Western equivalent of Eastern non-attachment. So a quick point here, you've got to make it good. All the marketing or the spin or the dramatic stuff in the world is not going to help if you don't do something good. You've got to put the effort in and actually do a good job. And also, you know, and make your service or your product or your book or whatever it is really good as well. You know, you can have the funkiest title of a book, and if a book's crap, no one's going to recommend it to other people. This guy who started a thing called Geek Squad, they kind of come around and fix your computer for you. You know, it's got a great name, great brand. Everyone wears pocket protectors and glasses and dresses like a geek, but they're also really good and they really have brilliant customer service. So he says marketing is a tax you pay for being unremarkable. In other words, you've always got to put effort into marketing, but the better and the more remarkable and more outstanding the thing that you do, the easier it's going to be. Also, people kind of make their stuff too complicated. The clearer you can make it and the simpler to understand, the better you'll do. I'm sure a few people have heard of Basecamp. It's project management software. Most project management software is very complicated and not very friendly. And so they made a big thing about the fact that actually there's not that much functionality in Basecamp, but it's very popular because it's they describe it as everyone's favorite project management app. And I think it was also, there was a line somewhere that said, well-beatingly easy to use. So they made a very simple statement like about what they could have described all sorts of features about Basecamp, but what they said, it's basically really easy to use. Seth Godin, who I mentioned earlier, has had 13 best-selling books. He started multiple startups. He does consulting, he does talks, but he's managed to boil his entire front page of his website down to this: go make something happen. So everything is about that one message. When you've got a good PR angle, when you finally find a good PR angle, you should milk it. I see clients sometimes, they hit on a good name, good idea, it's taking off, and they're kind of going, oh yeah, I suppose I should do something about that. I go, no, this is your moment. People are actually asking you, people are, the press is calling you or whatever. You've got to just throw everything at it at that point. So if that happens, make sure you notice. Final point, launch early and learn as fast as you can. Create your MVP, a minimum viable product. Who's heard this phrase before? Including the people who I've gave this talk to before. And what that means is, it's a phrase from Lean Startup. Minimum viable product is, what's the minimum version of your idea, whether it's product, business, service, whatever, that proves that it's working and that people want it, but you've managed to make something people want. And people ask the question, how minimal can you be? Need to ask this chap, Nick Swinburne. He's not very well known now because I think he probably cashed out with a few million and just went off somewhere. But if you've heard of Zappos, he actually started what became Zappos, and he did it instead of raising funding because he was having problems getting people to give him money to sell shoes on the internet, which is basically what Zappos is. What he did was he went to shoe shops and he said, hey, can I borrow your shoes, take a photo of them, and if I sell them, I'll give you the money. And they went, yeah, all right. And so what he did was he took a photo of all these things, put up a really simple site. When people pressed buy, it basically spat out an email to him going, someone just bought this shoe. He'd go and buy the shoe, stick it in a box, go to the post office and send it. And he did that about 100 times until he had enough sales that he could go to an investor, who happened to be Tony Hsieh, and say, look, people are buying shoes online. I've proved people do it. Now give me enough money to build a proper system. And he did. He got the money. He ended up, he left Zappos fairly early, but Zappos ended up being sold for like $1 billion to Amazon. And he did it. So anyone who says, my tech startup's too complicated, I can't possibly, I need 6 months to develop it. Think about how you could do a Nick Swinburne and just sometimes called Flintstoning it. See if you can Flintstone it, do something simple. This delightful chap here you probably recognize. He actually wrote the first version of Facebook in 30 days. It's Mark Zuckerberg, obviously. And this is him back in 2004 when he was still coding it on some very old laptop. So people forget that these things, people who want to be the next Facebook, they imagine that they need to emulate how Facebook works now. I say no, if you're a beginner, you need to emulate how Mark Zuckerberg started or how Nick Swinburne started. And that means embracing the idea that version 1 is better than version none. You've got to be willing to get something out there. Reid Hoffman, who created LinkedIn, says if you're not embarrassed by your first release, you waited too long. Now, it doesn't mean it should be crappy, but you need to create something which works, and people go, wow, this is really useful, even if it looks a bit clunky or, isn't perfect. This is something I want to use. This is version 1 of the Amazon site. Believe it or not, that's actually what it looked like. People forget that Amazon only sold books at the beginning. Of course, they now sell absolutely everything. And they started out just selling books. And the website looked like that. So the point about websites is that you can change them the next day, so you can keep evolving them. And everyone has to start somewhere. So I always say to people, be willing to start with one. What's your first thing? This is the first book Amazon ever sold, Fluid Concepts and Creative Analogies. Bought by a Douglas Hofstadter, and within a few weeks they were making $20,000 a week, I think it was. I think they make that about every 6 seconds now. But they haven't forgotten Mr. Wainwright, who was his name? John Wainwright, who bought that first book, and they named one of the buildings after him. So there's a building called the Wainwright Building on the Amazon campus. So the point is, you've got to start somewhere. And that means to get out there and try it out before you actually probably think you're ready. The Crater WordPress, Matt Mullenweg, said, every moment you're working on something without it being in the public, it's actually dying, deprived of the oxygen of the real world. So if you're saying, I've got to keep my ideas secret, and I've got to get it all right, and then go for the big reveal sometime down the line, I'm warning you that that's probably going to end in failure. So instead of sitting around thinking about things, thinking about what should I do, how should I make it successful, be willing to play it out. So I've got this, I write in my second book about the play cycle, the willingness to act, put something out into the world, reflect on what results you get, change what you're doing to make it better, and then go out and act on it. And that means accepting that everything is a draft. Here's the ultimate story. Craig Newmark was in a job in IT in a bank. He decided to start emailing everyone he knew who was interested in a list of events that was on in the Bay Area around San Francisco, art events and tech events and other stuff. And so somebody asked him on Quora, how did you create Craigslist? Because that's what it ended up being. He said, from beginning, did something simple and useful, asked for community feedback, did something about it, repeat forever. So that's the loop I suggest people actually do. Another example, is this idea worth $30 billion? Air, Bed and Breakfast, you might be able to guess what that became, started with this idea where they said you basically you buy an airbed and you let people stay in your room and you cook them breakfast, and it's called Air, Bed and Breakfast rather than a normal bed and breakfast. And they pitched this idea to Y Combinator, the startup. Hello. And they said, well, that's a terrible idea, but actually we're quite impressed with you. We think you can turn this into something useful. It became Airbnb, of course, which now has, 60 million guests and in 191 countries, and it's worth $30 billion. So the idea is your first idea probably won't work that well. You just got to be willing to fix it. So that's it. Wow. And I mentioned I ran this thing called the 30-day challenge, the Ideas Lab 30-day challenge. It's starting on the 1st of May, and for anybody who's in Bali who wants to take part, who happens to be here, if you go to getmyslides.com and enter your name and email, I'll send you a voucher for £200 off the price. It's normally £497, so it'll be £200 less than that. But you're also, if you go to Get My Slides, you can get these slides and the first chapter of that book. And there's also a worksheet which helps you evaluate all your different ideas and decide which one you want to progress. I finished on time, despite starting late. So does anyone want to ask any questions?
Any questions for John? Please. Okay, I have a question.
Good.
So I've been in online marketing business for almost 3 years, and I've heard an idea that you actually don't have to sell the pain, but you have to sell the solution. For example, there is a saying that don't sell your seeds, but sell the lawn. And can you relate to that? So when you sell the solution actually, but not the problem, or it should be somewhere wrapped up in the text copy that you create on your website?
I think you need an awareness of what the pain is, even if the pain is, you have to ask the question, where do they currently go to for a solution to this problem? And what is the problem with those solutions? So, for instance, if it's, you could say that, okay, other people who offer a similar service, they're too expensive, or they don't understand a particular market or something. If you can identify what that is actually part of the equation. But I agree that you can sell a vision, you can sell people into a brand that is people want to be part of. But I always think of it as partly away from and partly towards. It's kind of NLP term. So that even if you're selling a really compelling brand, then what you're looking for is there's something that attracts people towards that brand and that vision or that mission. But there's also something that sends them away from what they're doing elsewhere. And I think being aware of both is very helpful. So I think, yeah, a bit of both.
Another question: why you decided to narrow down your program to 30 days? Is it your experience? Is there any scientific facts behind that? Because, for example, I know Ty Lopez. Ty Lopez. He's like Latino American, and he's got this program 67 days, where he says that you can change your life in 66 days, but he added one because it doesn't look like 66.
Okay.
So he says that it's scientifically proven by this, and this, that in 66 days you can change your life and your brain and whatever. Why you have this 30 days challenge?
It's because from working with people for the last 12 years, what I've noticed is that if you set a project that's longer than that, then people start to relax into it. It becomes like if it's 6 weeks or 2 months, it's like, okay, that's a long project, and people kind of get a bit lost in that amount of space. Shorter than 30 days, you can't really get something chunky done. 30 days is enough time to really get clear what you're doing and then get something done that's very minimal and actually prove that it works. So it seems to be just the right amount of time. Any less than 30 isn't big enough, and bigger than 30, the deadline is not pressing enough to make you really focus. So just from experience and having run the 30-day challenge 9 times and having 1,200 people take it now, it just seems to really work that particular length of time. It's from experience rather than some of that science is a little bit iffy, like the 21 days to build a habit. That's a little questionable whether that actually ever really existed, that study. So some of those numbers this is purely from my own experience for that, but 30 came from.
And the last question is about what exactly you teach. So there is a thing that, for example, when you talk about a startup, starting your business, a lot of experts, they say that before you start your business, you need to think about how to exit your business or how to sell it. Do you focus on that? Do you teach people to think about that and and have a formula about that in advance, or you don't focus on that because it's too early?
No, because what we're trying to do is for people who've never started a business before, we're trying to flex their entrepreneurial muscles and get them to into the habit of producing and shipping. That's the real key, and winning a customer and selling themselves. For people who've already got a business, people retake the challenge who've got a business and they want to launch a new product, it's really about having a focus period where they're then absorbing a lot of information about how to create a proposition that really works, of the kind that I talked about, and then get that out in 30 days. It's quite product focused. I would say that if you're really beginning, if you think of, Mark Zuckerberg said he didn't even think of Facebook as a business, right up to the point where it was open to the public. He was still not thinking of it as a real business. It was only later that he started to do that. And most of the really groundbreaking projects, actually, they weren't quite thinking like that. They're just trying to think, how can we make something good that people really like? I don't think there's anything wrong about thinking about an exit strategy, but I don't think it's necessary. If you've never started a business before, you never sold yourself, you've only ever had a job, it's much more important that you practice being an entrepreneur.
Do we have any more questions?
How do we attend this lab? Is it a physical one or?
No, it's online. So people all over the world take it. Europe, Asia, Australia and America. And basically, if you sign up on this thing, I'll send you the details. You'll get this voucher thing, and I'll make sure that you see the details when they come out. So this week, I'm going to basically be releasing the page to the public, but it will be at the higher price, the normal price of $497 in pounds. Well, if anybody wants to ask me anything, come up and chat to me afterwards. I'm going to have a sit down and a drink and chill out.
Rachel,
So-
you want to ask a
Oh,
question?
yeah.
Give me a second.
Did you follow your own advice when you launched this program, or did you write the book based on experience of doing the opposite?
It depends what you mean. So the first book was based on my experience in a very varied career, having been freelancer, a consultant, an independent consultant, running my own company. The second book is based actually largely on the experience of running the 30-day challenge and seeing how well it worked. But I definitely ran that process myself because the first 30-day challenge was a little bit clunky and had some problems, but people still really enjoyed it. And we had like 150 people. Since then we've had as many as 300 people on it, and now it's really slick. We've got our own platform. So it evolves, and every single time I'm changing it. I'm trying to make it even more powerful for people because that's what I like to do. So yeah, I hope I'm following my own principles.